29 degrees is a big number this week. And I wish you to go on your way, separate path from me, and you have a good life. The week of February 17th, 2025. The following 7 days. Let's take a peek here and get this chart on the screen. I want you to just see this chart real quick. Like, I want you to see the big, grand scope of it, right? You see, we have a mystic rectangle there in the chart, and that involves the south node. It's a mystic rectangle with the south node, creates 60 degrees, okay? And it's talking to, the south node is in direct communication with the retrograding Pandora's box at 29 critical degrees. This is just the very beginning of the week, okay? You know, Pandora is considered, I call it the can of worms, but Pandora's box. You open it and it, it unleashes all the evils of the world, nothing left but hope. It sounds super grim, right? So, because it's in the sign of Cancer energy, we think the public, we think family, we think emotions, we, think moon energy, right? So it could be mom for anybody who's got concerns in particular about mom or women in general, female energy, family, history, my tribe. Okay. Now we know we still have Mars in Cancer. Mars is still sitting here at 17 degrees. This is where it stops before it goes direct. So because it's sitting still, it's super effing intense here. This is a retrograding Mars, and it's at like the peak of being out of bounds. Again, emotions and family, feminine energy. Again, remember moon. Just think moon when you see Cancer energy. And so we see there's some intense. Mars is very intense. And it usually, whenever you see Mars in the chart, your body taking action with something. With Mars, it's usually where our passions lie. What we are passionate, what we will fight for, what we will fight about. And Mars typically is a soldier, so sometimes it's definitely using a weapon. Many folks using weapons who are not soldiers or police officers, people who aren't supposed to carry weapons. I've already given examples of the past in August or October when Mars was first here at this degree. Really grim shit, basically. It doesn't have to be identical, but we're being aware of it in our world, in our life, because of the fact that this is a retrograding Mars and it's out of bounds. And the last time it was at this degree in October, it was not retrograding and it was not out of bounds. But when we get super heightened with our emotions, think full moon energy, right? When we get super amped up with our emotions, it blinds our ability to use our mind. And at the end of the day, with Mars energy, it is supposed to go beyond, above and beyond using its body. It's not supposed to be the soldier anymore. It's literally supposed to go to its higher mind and develop the higher mind, which is why we call it the fine wine. Sorry about all the eyes. But that's just the way the Mars energy works. Once it matures and ages, becomes that fine wine and just blossoms, does really good, develops anyway, just becomes super beautiful. And this young Mars out of bounds, you're going to see really like juvenile actions, right? Things where you look at somebody or even yourself where you're like, I'm acting like a baby, right? So we also think about surgeon and surgeries because it's Mars and Cancer. So pregnant women and surgical procedures, and how some of those surgical, life-saving surgical procedures are considered illegal in certain locations in the United States. And so is like the morning after pill. Like there's a lot of things that are considered illegal now in the US in certain locations. So you have possibly women having to take a route having to make a decision with a choice that they wouldn't normally make, right? So 17 degrees, 17 degrees. Children and family, right? And surgeries. Even on the beginning of the week. Look, the very beginning of this week, the sun in Aquarius at 29. Now, remember, this Aquarian energy is expect the unexpected. Okay. Remember its inventions, experiments. We think space, the space station. We think NATO, World Health Organization. Um, Aquarius energy, the inventor, the internet, streaming, Aquarius energy, 29 degrees, 28 degrees, 27 degrees. Do you see the theme? 27 and 28 and 29 in Aquarius. Shocks and surprises, supply chain for sure. We think of supply chain and how does it work? Well, there's boats and there's ships and there's airplanes, there's trains, right? But mass transportation, Aquarius energy. And of course, drones was all the rage before Christmas, maybe even sooner. Drone activity and all that crap. And, drone delivery is a big deal, but people might not be aware of it. But lots of corporations are coming online with it. And so the AI stuff, big time coming online. The other part of that mystic rectangle, I've kind of got it drawn in a different color, but it's because it's part of a grand water trine, right? And that's a lot of stuff up here. We've got Neptune and we have Isis and we have the North Node. Neptune, Isis, the North Node. You see that in there? Whew, it's pretty big. It's pretty intense. Like this is some big stuff. It's really big in terms of oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. What happened? I don't know. We're going to get it back. Have patience. There it is. Wow, that happened faster than I thought. That's great. Okay, so we've got water amped up. Pisces. Think Pisces energy. All right. So 28, 27, 27. It's a big deal. North Node, where we're headed. We think hospitals and care and doctors with Pisces energy, healing institutions with Pisces energy. Neptune at 28, public figures, Hollywood. Music and sound is really big. Sound of music, right? Really big, really idealistic. Even being in a monastery, or I wanted to call it a nunnery. I'm sorry, that's not the name. A convent, nunnery. But yeah, the sound of music type of thing where it's a place where holy people go, people of the cloth, people who commit their life to God, right? People who are married to God, like that is literally their partner. At the same time, it can also be full of illusions and delusions because this is a really creative energy. It's not material, tangible. We connect to the other side. So our intuitions can be really strong. But I want to stress here, I want to stress this. When it comes to intuitions, whether you're, highly intuitive, an extreme sensitive, I get lots of folks who always talk about their intuitive Scorpio energy and Pisces as well, very intuitive. Many times people, you can't believe everything that comes through. You have to test it. You have to figure out a system. You have to figure out some sort of a protocol for yourself where what's coming through, you can trust that it's from a higher source, that it is more on the pure side where and maybe pure is the wrong word, but it's not about somebody who could be coming through on the other side. Lots of energy, by the way, when you start dipping your toes into that water, into that realm. but there's just a lot of energy, water energy. So when we get the intuitions amped up, which is what this is, I want you to just figure out a system for yourself. And I do this for myself too, just so you know. This isn't like, for those of you who are underdeveloped. No, this this is just a basic teaching, right? And it is to create a way where you know the information that comes through is true for you when it passes certain tests that you give it. Because you have to kind of figure out, where's this information coming from? What's the source of the information? Can I trust it? And how do I test it? How can I figure out ways to test the information that comes through to know if it's true, to know if it's valid, to know, right? And that doesn't mean that you're then to share it. You have to kind of figure all that out in your life. Some people are were set up to share. Some people were tested. Our whole life, or one of the things in our life is to get the information, but possibly learning discernment is a lifelong lesson for us, where we're just constantly trying to figure that out. For some people, they may get messages, but nobody believes you. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Like, it's very different for everybody. Okay. So intuitions will be amped up, right? Sound and music, sleep, respite, fantasy, huge this whole week. Let's back up, because Mars doesn't really move. It's a slow mover, and it's making contact with Saturn. So work and long-term goals and ambitions within Pisces. So spiritual work, possibly. We could be sound and music, meditation, creative work, right? Absolutely. Whatever those long-term goals are, because it's taking because Mars has a bit of an input here, being out of bounds. We might be actively finding ways to connect to the other side. So one thing I also want to stress with Pisces is it is nature. What is our proof of something beautiful, something that man couldn't make in our physical world? What is that? Nature. So this would be a good time to take action with nature. That's the big backstory. That's the blue backstory. It's a trine, a grand water trine. The other part of that grand water trine, and remember, this is all including her, the Pandora's box, unleashing the evils of the world. So I'm going to put that into context in a second, because I want to point out the other water energy that we have set up for this week. And that is this. This started last week, actually. This is not a super fast mover. So it's been at 29 in Scorpio, the battle, the war, the fight. Who's going to be my partner? Right? So we know, right? Global alliances have been shifting. We know that. We're in February, so the new cabinet is in. There's a new president in the United States. We will see what happens. But when you look at this intensification, intense energy is Scorpio. You do see we have Black Moon Lilith. Yeah, she's been in Scorpio, but she's retrograding now out of Scorpio. But even on this day, the freaking moon is at 29 in partnerships. By the 20th, this Juno will be at 0 degrees in Saggy. Okay, so 17th and 18th, we have this very strong water trine, and folding back in the Pandora's box, the can of worms. You have to take into consideration Mars, because they're both in Cancer, and they're headed towards each other, because Mars, once it's done retrograding, it'll go forward. And this is retrograding. So they're actually going like this. They're two ships headed towards each other. I'm going to say ships because of water. I know when I'm recording this, it's the end of December. And in the news, in the last few days, I think there have been interesting reports, whether it's airplanes, downed planes, whether it was intentional, whatever the mess is. Okay. Lots of different stuff. Stories about pirates. You know what I'm saying? Finland had a ship. And I can't remember. I don't know the details, right? I listened to the video. I go to Belle of the Ranch. Used to be Beau of the Fifth Column. Now the channel's kind of changed. And it's Belle of the Ranch. And she was explaining, anyway, the dynamics of it all. I leave that to people where the foreign affairs is like their jam. It's their thing. They know way more about it than I do. Um, but it lays the groundwork for something like this. The Navy, right? Boats in the water, definitely Pisces energy. And because Mars is trining Pisces energy, super out of bounds, lots of stuff, whether it's intentional or not, or people just testing the waters. There's also lots of war games that go on. They're literally games, though, to keep people, to keep militaries at readiness. They have, shit they're blowing up all the time. Like they have to stay ready. So, because I don't know a lot about all that military kind of stuff, you can go watch the videos, and this could be that too. You follow? So when we look at all the water in the big trine and the partnerships of Juno in there, and then 2 days later, Juno going into Saggy, you know, Scorpio is like our shared values and the partnerships. And then when it goes into Saggy, it really brings in a foreigner type of partnership because it's Jupiter. So it's somebody who might be new to the game, somebody who you would consider a foreigner, right? It's also judges, don't get me wrong. We still got judges in the United States, oh my God, in courtrooms and cases. But Juno going into Saggy, and it's not going to stay there, give you a heads up. It's going to be there until April. I think it retrogrades out. I think I want to say the second or the third week of April, it retrogrades back into Scorpio. You see, more water. So, with all of this said for this week, we got to take a look and look what we see. Well, this has been here, but we also have Pluto. I have them drawn in. Pluto and Pallas Athena are going to get conjunct. Pallas Athena at 0, Pluto at 2. So we're being strategic with our inventions. We're being strategic with possibly anything that is unique and different and new. But we think of science and advancements for humanity. We think of electric, we think of EVs, we think of hydrogen, we think of nuclear because it's your energy grid. You know, man-made shit, Aquarius energy, but man-made shit that, holy crap, where did you get that idea? That's amazing. How did you do that? Like, no way, right? Aquarius energy, shocks and surprises. Pluto and Pallas Athena, Pluto is intense, it's deep, and it's powerful, right? And it can be the authoritarians, but what about unions? What about unions? Did you guys hear the news that like Starbucks is really hurting, right? Because of the unions, because Starbucks, once the unions came into Starbucks, whatever Starbucks, the company did, the individuals, the consumers have stopped going to Starbucks. Not to say that there aren't customers, but they've had a big decline, a big numbers loss because of people saying, screw it. You're going to screw over your workers. We're screwing you. We don't need you then. You suck. You make how much money? You can't take care of the employees that take care of us. You suck. So your power, the public's power, Aquarius energy really, truly works. Really, truly works. And I say this because this is union and group energy, friends and social circles is Aquarius energy. So when these two sit together like this, when you've got Pluto and Pallas Athena, she is the strategist. She's thinking, and Pluto brings the power, the intense power. Well, what comes with intense power, right? Especially in our world, intense power, somebody's got money somewhere, right? So we think power with authoritarians. This can be global banking because we've got Pluto sitting at 2 degrees. This wasn't just this week, but because she's getting close, because Pallas Athena is getting close, there can be something that folds in the power of the past. Whether you're a rocket scientist or whether you serve somebody a coffee, or maybe you're the one who's serving the coffee to the rocket scientist, right? Because service and service industry is big because we have the South Node. The South Node, I started off talking about the South Node. It's at 27 in the news, right? 27, Virgo is the service industry. And it's not just making you a coffee, but it's if you spill it and I got to come in and clean it up, it's that too. And if you want to eat food and you need food and fruits and vegetables, they need to be picked, it's that too. These are the essential workers in society, right? They take care of the minuscule, non glamorous side of life, but they're oh so important in setting us up for success. South Node, South Node, daily day routines, my health, digestion. This is a big deal when it comes to somebody who was months back, maybe it was been longer by now, asking me about when is a good time to do a cleanse. Well, shit. Literally, South Node in Virgo, a good time to release some of the routines and habits that led to ill health, right? So it's a good time, absolutely, but you just don't want to overdo it because the South Node is there. Depending upon points in your chart, it might be a little harsh and too extreme. So you might want to try to figure out try to figure out more of a moderate balanced type of thing where it's not like I'm trying to do that, overnight. It might be a little extreme for some folks. If we look at the chart, Mercury's in Pisces here this week. Okay, she's at 625. Remember, we started talking about, I mentioned all the water energy and possibly Navy and Army or military because we got Mars down there in water, right? Well, Mercury's here. So this is telling us about what we're thinking about and talking about, and it's what's in the news and social media. Okay. So it's Pisces. So it's public figures, heads of state, right? Because these are the big, Hollywood type of gajillionaire type of energy, right? Um, Performance energy and sound, right? It sounds real good, but we also have to keep in mind about whether we're being tricked and illusions and delusions on the show, right? Because that's a big part of Pisces energy is the show and how creative it is. Okay. Super creative energy. Yeah, this week we got Nessa and Saturn together, which there might be someone doing things that are a little vengeful until this passes, because Nessa is the vengeful centaur who is seeking revenge, right? And then we go find Venus, and we see Venus is at 8 degrees here. She's at 8 degrees in Aries, and Venus is going to actually do a retrograde. She's going to do a retrograde in Aries energy. And I think I already maybe I didn't. I can't remember if I put my video up for the retrogrades for the year. Venus will be within the first 10 degrees of Aries energy. So Venus gets to about 10 degrees in Aries and then does a retrograde. Now, the thing with this, because it's Venus, my values, right? My values, my love, my money, my desires. The thing about Venus in Aries is about my body. Venus is also feminine energy. So here we go. It's really amping up women and women's appearance and their body, and the freedom of their body is really, super pronounced. And because it's a retrograde that's going to occur, we know there's going to likely be conversations, communications, possibly legislation, because Mercury then enters Aries as well. We'll talk more about that later on. But just so that you know, Venus at 10 degrees of Aries will begin a retrograde. Okay. And that retrograde does not begin this week, but she sits at 10 degrees for a really long time. Yeah. She's sitting right there at 8. So she sits between 8 and 10 degrees for like 3 weeks. So it's our shared values, 8 degrees, money, but our shared values, Venus in Aries, my body, the freedom and the rights of my body and my bodily autonomy, Venus. And then the 9-degree Venus will be my beliefs about those things, right? So we're thinking Venus at 8 degrees, shared values, also shared wounds, because it's 8 degrees, it's Scorpio energy, Venus energy. The wounds of what? Of Mars, right? Because it's Venus in Aries, which is Venus and Mars at 8 degrees. Sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape, young. Aries is very youthful. How many women have been assaulted at a very young age, which is usually a family member that have never talked about it? Hello? Is there anybody listening that can say that this didn't happen to them? I just really want a show of hands because I know that's going to be a lot easier to count. Where, anyway, there's a lot of people who have gone through some experiences, and because some stuff is so tragic, there's trauma there. And with that trauma, they don't have the recall. They don't have the recall. It's too difficult for them. It's part of an existing, a survival mechanism, right? I can't experience that again in my memory. So there's just a lot to go over at this with that 8 degree and the vulnerabilities and the deep and intense wounds. I have drawn in Mercury and Saturn right here together. See them here? They start to become conjunct this week. All right. This week we got Mercury and Saturn. They're starting to line up. Mercury and water, which means Mercury is going to be trining Mars. There's a lot with water this week. Mercury and Mars, and then eventually Mercury and Saturn. Mercury is the communication, and Saturn is the boss. Saturn's in charge. It's rules, it's regulations, it's a new system, it's a new order. We think of history, we think of the past, we think of acceptance, understanding, forgiveness, Pisces energy, forgiveness, right? We got to forgive. Now, I'm not saying you got to forgive because you need to let that person know, oh, don't worry about it. No, no, no. Some people would be like, no, there are some things, the unforgivables. You let go and you forgive for you. We just have to unlearn some things and get to a point where we can forgive, although I'm not necessarily forgetting because I will never allow that to happen again. But for the sake of my own well being, I forgive and I release you. And I wish you to go on your way, separate path from me, and you have a good life. We are now severed. You follow? And I think that's really an important thing. And with such an intensification in Pisces of understanding and acceptance and forgiveness, acceptance not in the terms of, oh, yes, please, may I have another? No, no, no. Acceptance of, oh my God, that happened to me. You follow? Acceptance of, okay, now I have to process this, however long it takes. The understanding with the mind in Pisces connecting to Mars and the history and the past. This can be a wonderful opportunity at this time. Remember, Mars is super amped up, and I'm thinking with that energy, make it get involved and to be taking action with whether it's within nature, whatever that means for you. Obviously, water would be one of those because it's Mars and it's the mind in Pisces. And the Scorpio energy, we even have Vesta over there at 15 degrees in Scorpio. You see, Vesta's even at 14, but she'll be at 15 this week. So it trines the Mars energy too. So there's some strong opportunities to change the energy of the past events, the tragic past events of our life. 29 degrees can be tech giants, people who have corporations, people whoever the CEO is. I can think of a couple of names of, but I'm not going to say them because these are people where these are the megalomaniacs of the world. Let's put it like that. The authoritarians, the oligarchs, the megalomaniacs. Yeah. And I don't want a megalomaniac in my life. That's fine on the screen for Hollywood, but not in life. It's absolutely not okay. not okay at all. So I think we're all set. You got questions, comment below. And just remember, I appreciate your time. Hope you've had a good new year so far. And yeah, take care. Bye-bye.